Welcome to Pan's webinar, Notary Trivia. You are going to test your knowledge of notary topics by answering questions on the screen. Your questions are anonymous, right or wrong. This is a learning experience. Our presentation will start with a question and then be followed by an explanation. When we have finished with the questions and the explanations, you will have a chance to ask questions. Please do not add your questions to the chat box until after the presentation is complete. Let's begin with John's presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So before we start here, I'd like to let you know that typically when we're presenting, we take ourselves off the screen so you can focus on the material. So I will take myself off the screen for the presentation, and then we'll pop back on when we handle the Q&A portion of today's seminar. So let's get off the screen here. And like Brian said, I'd like to welcome you to one of Pan's webinars. Today we're doing Notary Trivia. My name's John Morenzel, Brian Crocker, and Crystal Ann Jones. All three of us are Pan instructors. Last year we held a webinar called Notary Knowledge, and participants seemed to really enjoy that interaction that we did. So today we're going to do something similar with new questions and scenarios to test your notary knowledge. So with all the participants being muted today, you can use the chat box to ask your questions. Make sure you have pulled up the chat box by clicking on the chat box icon. When you click on that, it should pop it up. Please address your questions to everybody, so all three instructors can see the question. Lastly, hold your questions until after the presentation is complete, and we will hold a Q&A session once the presentation is over. All right, so what we're going to do here first is a fun icebreaker. If you've never done a Zoom with us before, this will show you how we can vote on polls that we ask you to participate in. With this icebreaker poll, there will be 6 questions. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to vote on the 6 questions. And once the 2 minutes are up, I will end the poll and share the results. Please keep in mind that all votes are anonymous. So I don't know, Brian, Crystal, we don't know what you voted for. We only get to see the totals at the end, and we will share the totals once that 2 minutes is up. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's put the poll on the screen here. So I click launch. Now, this poll, like I said, there are 6 questions. So you might need to expand the poll box by just with your mouse clicking and dragging down on the poll so you can see some of them. And then there is a little bar at the on the right hand side where you can scroll down. So go ahead and take a couple minutes and let me know what you're thinking on these. These are kind of fun to see what everybody's thinking. We'll give about another minute if we need it. A lot of people have already voted, so that's awesome. About another 30 seconds or so. Once that 30 seconds is up, we'll share the results on your screen. This poll will give a little bit longer than the other ones. Typically, we only give a minute, but since there were 6 questions on this one, we decided to give an additional minute just to play it safe. All right, so let's end the poll here. And let's check out the results here. I'm going to share the results on your screen. So we had 97 people participate in this poll. So thanks for that. 72% people said dogs. 28% said cats. So that's a big difference there. Phone calls versus text. 66% of people say text versus phone calls. Coffee or tea. 62% say coffee. I'd be in that group there. 38% said tea. Smooth or crunchy peanut butter. 73% said smooth, only 27% said crunchy. And then when it comes to vanilla or chocolate, we got 62% saying chocolate, 38 vanilla. And beach versus mountains. 69% are saying the beach, 31 are saying the mountains. Awesome. So that's kind of fun. Gives you an idea of how we're going to be set up here today with the polls. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing the poll. So if it's still on your screen for some reason, there should be a little red X on the poll tab. You could just click X on it and it will go off your screen. All right, so let's start with our first scenario here. This is question 1. Your customer comes to you to have something notarized. You've never met them before, therefore you ask them for an ID. They hand you their social security card. Is the social security card an acceptable ID? What I'm going to do is launch the poll, and you let me know what you're thinking on this one. I'm going to give a minute to let you vote on this scenario. Give about another 30 seconds. All right, here we're getting close to that minute mark. All right, that is our minute. So let's go ahead and end the poll. And let's take a look at the results that came in here. So we had 57% of people say it's not acceptable. There is no photograph. 29% of people said it's only acceptable if presented with another form of ID. And then 14% of people said it's an acceptable form of ID. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing the results and let's take a look and see what answer is the correct one. So what we're going to do is kind of weed these out. So going through these, the correct answer, believe it or not, it's an acceptable form of ID. It's got to shock the room because that was the least amount of vote. Let's talk about this. For an ID to be acceptable, it needs to meet certain criteria. So it needs to be government issued. It needs to be current, not expired. It needs to contain a signature or a photograph. And it needs to be satisfactory to you, the notary. So go into the Social Security card. It's government issued. It does not have an expiration date. Therefore, it does not expire until that customer would pass away. So it's current. And it needs to have a signature or a photograph. Because there is a signature, the photograph is not required. Now, even though it meets the requirements by law, PAN does not recommend accepting the Social Security card unless you, the notary, are comfortable with it. So that's going to be up to you. It's your call. All right, let's do another question here. Question 2. Are you permitted to be the notary and a witness on the same document? Let's go ahead and launch this poll, and I'm going to give you a minute to vote on this one. About another 30 seconds. Give you time to vote here. Another 30 seconds. Loving this participation I'm seeing so far. All right, we're almost at that minute. That is our minute mark. So let me end the poll. We are going to take a look at the results here. I'll share them on the screen. Are you permitted to be the notary and the witness on the same document? 50% of people, that's the majority, says you can never be the notary and the witness on any document. 39% said you could be the notary and the witness on certain documents. And then 10% of people said you could be the notary and a witness on all documents. All right, so let's stop sharing and let's go over the correct answer here. So let's weed through them and see. The correct answer is you could be the notary and a witness on certain documents. Let's go more in depth on this. This is a common question we get at Penn. And surprisingly, you may act as a notary and a witness on the same document majority of the time. However, the entity that prepared the document may prefer the notary and the witness to not be the same person. There are two scenarios where you cannot be the notary and the witness on the same document. You may not act as the notary and a witness when the signature of the witness needs to be notarized, and you may not act as a notary and a witness for a power of attorney. So, looks like we're learning some stuff here today. That's great. All right, let's take a look at question 3 here. Question 3, proper notary wording consists of a venue and a notary statement. What does the venue indicate? So let me go ahead and put up the options here. Give me a second here. Here is our options. Launch the poll. Let me know what the venue indicates. I'll give you a minute. Give you about another 30 seconds. All right, we're almost at our minute. Mostly everybody voted. Thank you for that. All right, so let's take a look. Let's end the poll. Let's take a look at the results. Share them on the screen here. All right, so 82%, that was the majority, said the location of the notarization. 17% of people said the location where the notary's from. And then we had a tie for 1%, the location where the document was created, and then the location where the customer's from. So let's stop sharing and let's take a look at what answer is correct. Again, we'll just kind of weed through these. And the majority of us got that one right. Awesome. The location of the notarization. There are 67 counties in Pennsylvania. And as a notary here in Pennsylvania, you can notarize in all of them. The venue indicates where the notarization is taking place. Easy way to remember the venue. Look down at your feet. What county are you physically standing in when you're about to notarize? For example, Penn is in Allegheny County. If I'm notarizing a document at work, the venue would reflect that. It would read Allegheny. Regardless of where the document's from or where the customer's from, the venue always shows where the notarization took place. All right, let's do question 4 here. Which notary act do we need to perform? Review the document on the left hand of the screen here and use Penn's notary wording handout that's on the right for help to determine the notary act. What I'm going to do here is give you a minute to look over that document on the left. And after that minute, then I'll go ahead and ask you what act it is. We're going to give about another 30 seconds. And again, once that 30 seconds is up, I will then launch the poll. All right, so it's time to vote. Let's go ahead and put this poll question up and let me know what Notary Act you believe it is. Excuse me. Give about another 30 seconds to vote. All right, that is almost our full minute. There it is. So let's end the poll and let's take a look at the results. I'm going to share the results on the screen. 61% a verification on oath. 30% said it was an acknowledgement, and 9% said witnessing or attesting a signature. So I'm going to stop sharing and let's figure out which one it was. Let's take a look here. It was a verification on oath. So majority of us did get that correct. Let's take a look at this. The notary statement determines which notary act you're completing. When determining the notary act, ignore the title of the document. Titles can be misleading. The title of the document reads acknowledgement form. So that's why I'm guessing some of us said acknowledgement. You should review the document to find the notary statement. Once you find a notary statement, it's your responsibility as the notary to figure out which notary act the statement stands for. Using Pan's notary wording handout, we determine the notary act that needs to be performed is a verification on oath or affirmation. We will upload this notary wording handout as a PDF in the chat box momentarily, because I bet you some of us probably want this handout. So we'll put it in the chat box here very shortly. All right, so question 5, and this is our last question. Look at the example on the right here. How many journal entries do you need to make in this scenario? Take 30 seconds to review this, and then I'll have you vote. About another 15 seconds. All right, so let's go ahead and vote on this. We're going to put up this last poll question. How many journal entries do we need to make on that document there? And Brian did us a favor. Thank you, Brian. He ended up putting the notary wording handout in the chat box. So if anybody found that useful and they would like it before they leave here today, you could have it downloaded before you leave. So thanks, Brian. Give about another 30 seconds on this. Give you a chance to vote. Another 30 seconds. You're welcome. All right, we're getting close to that minute mark. A lot of us are voting, so thank you. Over 90% participation. That's great. All right, so that is our minute. Let's end the poll. Let's take a look at the results. So 63% of people said 2 journal entries. 37% of people said 1 journal entry. So let's stop sharing and let's see what the correct answer is. 1 journal entry, believe it or not. So let's take a look and see why it's 1. The document we notarized had 1 notary statement for Frank and Rita. Since both are listed in the same notary statement, that means it's 1 notarization. Since it's one notarization, it's one stamp down and one journal entry. Easy rule to follow. One stamp equals one notarization equals one journal entry. For this scenario, you could fill out your journal one of two ways. Option one is fitting both customers on the same journal line. This would be easy to do if you personally know the customers and their address is the same. Option two is using two journal lines for the one notarization. This might be an option if you needed to ID your customers since you didn't personally know them. You would X out the second journal entry number, line through the unneeded sections, list the second customer's information, then explain in the remarks column that this is tied into the above notarization. So you can handle it one of two ways, your preference. All right, to summarize what we just covered, an acceptable ID needs to be current, government issued, and at least a signature or a photograph. You can be the notary and a witness on certain documents. The venue is where the notarization is taking place. The notary statement will determine which notary act you need to perform for your customer. And lastly, one stamp equals one notarization, which equals one journal entry. Let's open the floor now to see if you have any questions on the presentation.
And I'll go ahead and take the first question when it comes in. We'll go alphabetically by instructor last name. So that will be me, then Crystal Ann, and then Mr. John.
There we go.
And I didn't do that on purpose, by the way. Call you Mr. John. I just realized what I did.
No, you are good.
So if you don't remember how to ask a question in the chat bar, click on chat and then go ahead and enter your question where it says type message here. And please go ahead and send that message to everyone. So this particular webinar will last at the latest until 12 o'clock today, or when you run out of questions, whichever comes first. In the last question, can you also put two lines in your journal, one entry, but check the personal knowledge? In the last question. Oh, I see. So the first example, I guess she's referring to where you showed how the notary knew both of them personally and you were able to fit them both on one line. Could you have split them on two lines and still done the X's across the numbers and drawn the lines through the unused section? I don't see a problem with that, no.
I agree.
Okay, great. I will answer the next question for Ron signings. So Ron is remote online notarization. So for Ron signings, how will the venue be as the notary and the client are sometimes in different countries? Well, the notary always needs to be located somewhere. So the venue will say where the notary is at the time during that notarization in Pennsylvania. So for example, right now I'm in Allegheny County, I'm downtown at work. So if I were to do a remote online notarization right now, it would say Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, County of Allegheny. And thank you for your question.
All right. To be clear, you cannot notarize and be a witness for a power of attorney. That is correct. That is one scenario where you cannot be both. In the other scenario is you can't be the notary and the witness if the witness's signature is being notarized. Those are the two don'ts in when you're going to be both.
I'm trying to find the next question. Let's see. So when I'm notarizing an MSO, which is a manufacturer's statement of origin, I need to enter the county of where the customer is located, not my county. So if you're notarizing a manufacturer's statement of origin or any document for that matter, it's where the notarization is taking place. So if you're doing it at the dealership, which I assume you are, it's the county where the dealership is located.
Excellent. Okay, I have another venue question. If there's no venue information on a document, do you have to write it in? So yes, Liz, as the notary, you're responsible for a venue being on every document that you notarize. And you're also responsible for the venue being correct. And thank you for your question.
All right. So when I first started in my journal, I only put the type of ID used and forgot to list the issue and the expiration date. How can I fix this? You can't go back and undo the past. It's pretty much what's done is done. So what I would recommend, and I know the other instructors would agree, from here on out, just do it the proper way. Starting today, make sure anytime that ID has a signature, or excuse me, anytime the ID has that expiration date, put the expiration, put the issue along in your journal.
From Laura, if we change jobs, what do we need to do from a notary standpoint? For example, if I still work in the same county, but my employer is different, how do I update that? Well, if your office of record changes, you need to notify the Department of State within 30 days. There is a form for that. If you are a member of PAN, I would recommend contacting customer service because they'll make the process a lot easier. One thing you will not need to do, because you're in the same county, you will not need to get a new stamp and you will not need to register your signature again. Just change the address with the state. And it looks like I also posted the link to all the information about remote online notarization on the Department of State's website. Yeah, it was way down because the questions started to pour in.
Yeah, they really did. So another question, is it a problem if you put the witness's name as well as the ID issue and expiration dates together? And I guess you mean in the journal? I'm not sure. Do you guys, can you interpret the question for me?
I think Tiffany may be trying to mix using a credible witness with taking ID. If that's the, I don't know, maybe she can clarify and you can move on to the next question.
Okay, so for now, I'll move on to the next question. We can only notarize in Pennsylvania, but if a person is from out of town and needs something to be notarized, can I do this? Yes, absolutely. If somebody comes in from another state and wants you to notarize for them, you can absolutely do that, but you both need to be physically located in Pennsylvania.
All right, so Valerie asked, if you are using a credible witness for the signer, can the credible witness also sign as a witness on the document? Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in the law or the proposed regulations that have an issue with that. I would make sure where that document's going, they're going to be okay with it being accepted that way, if they're going to take it, but nothing in the law against it.
So Lori wants to know, when adding the venue to a document, is there a preference if wording should read State of Pennsylvania versus Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? And having been at PAN for 18 plus years, sometimes my answers are longer than they should be. So my short answer is no, there is no preference. If you read the Pennsylvania State Constitution, it interchangeably refers to Pennsylvania as a state and as a Commonwealth. And if you read the notary law, when you get to the section on short form certificates, every venue says State of Pennsylvania. So it doesn't matter.
Okay, next question is from Sandy. Do you need to write in the notary wording if it does not exist on the document? Sandy, that is, we do some advanced education classes called Everyday Notary Challenges. How in depth should I get into this, guys? So first of all, you cannot choose for the customer needs to choose. And if they cannot choose, have the customer go to a lawyer. But should we go into depth on this topic, or?
What I would recommend is, I'm going to put it in the chat box. There's our YouTube page. We've actually had a webinar on this topic, and we have a tutorial video on how to handle documents where there's no notary wording. That can give you some insight on how to handle it. Because like Crystal Ann stated, yeah, you can't just pick for the customer. There is a process that should be followed. But I think if you watch one or both of those videos, you'll have a better understanding.
Also, if you download the notary wording reference sheet that I posted in the chat box earlier, it is 2 pages. And the second page has instructions on what to do when there is no notary wording.
Fantastic advice from everybody.
Excellent, thank you.
All
And I
right.
posted the YouTube page. I don't know if you guys posted that yet.
No, I
Yes,
didn't.
sir.
So I'm
All
glad you
right.
did.
Sometimes or most times, government documents still do not contain correct or proper notary wording. How do we go about such situations? So, like we just kind of talked about there, you can't decide what act. You can't just add it on there, and choose for the customer or choose for where it's going. The proper notary wording needs to be on there. If you're notarizing it here in Pennsylvania, what notary wording that's on the handout that we provided, it should be on the document somewhere. If it's not, you have something that we call PIN, you have something called a problem document, and you're not just going to be able to stamp and sign it. So follow the instructions on that handout or follow the instructions from the YouTube video we just suggested.
All right, Tiffany would like to know, when recording the witness in the journal is what I meant, to take down their name as well as their ID, issue, expiration date. So that is a clarification of her question from before. So there actually are 2 answers to that question. It depends on whether you're notarizing the witness's signature or not. If there is a witness signature on a page and you are notarizing that witness's signature, that witness is a customer and they get their own journal entry. And then if you identified them using identification, then yes, you would be required to mark off acceptable ID and list a description of the ID and an issue and expiration date if there is one. On the other hand, if the only person's signature who's being notarized is that of the customer, and this is just a witness who's in the room, there's a witness signature line, the witness's signature does not need to be notarized, and then you're potentially listing the name of the witness in the remarks section, I would not say that it's necessary to write down any information about their identification at that point, just their name.
Great. So Jennifer asks, can you still be a Pennsylvania notary if you become a resident in another state? So she's talking about being a resident of 2 different states. Here's the thing, you can be a Pennsylvania notary if you live or work in Pennsylvania. But if you no longer have a home address in Pennsylvania or a work address in Pennsylvania, then you cannot be a Pennsylvania notary.
All right. So then I see Tiffany, she was tying into her question there. So we're good there.
I think we answered
Angela's,
it,
yeah. Angela's the next question. Can you confirm I can notarize for family as long as I do not benefit from it? For example, a will. The law states, and the law is vague. It states you could pretty much notarize anything in Pennsylvania as long as you or your spouse don't have a direct or financial interest in that document, and they leave it at that. So that's going to be up to you. Do you gain anything out of this? Do you have any interest? And interest doesn't mean gaining anything out of it. It could just mean, you want this to happen. You want that to take place. So our stance, when in doubt, it might be better to have somebody else notarize.
All right, Gene would like to know, if my office is in a different county, can I renew my notary in the county where I live? Yes, Gene, you can. It all depends on how you fill out your notary application. On the Pennsylvania State Notary application, there's a place for 2 addresses. The first address space is for employer business address, and the second space is for home address. Now, again, the assumption is you live and work in different counties. If you list your business address and your home address, your notary commission will be based, you'll get sworn in, you'll register your signature, your stamp will reflect the county that the business is located in. If you leave the business information off of the application, in other words, in all those spaces where you normally would have listed the name of the business, the address, etc., print NA, not applicable, and then only list your home address information, then your office of record will be based in the county where you live. The stamp will reflect that county. You'll get sworn in that county, and you'll register your signature in that county.
All right. So Catherine says that my expiration date is in January. I paid the renewal fee, attended the training, and submitted the application in July. What is the next step and how long is the process? So Catherine, you should have received an email from the Department of State. It would come from an email address called ra-notaries.gov. And if you didn't receive that, or if you have any questions, it seems like you are a member of PAN. You can call customer service and ask them if there's some sort of hold up there.
Now, I can say this from experience, Catherine. It looks like you did this process early, which we recommend. Yeah, we recommend starting the renewal process typically 6 months before your expiration. So looks like you took that advice. With you not expiring until January, there's a good possibility that the state's not going to send you something till around like 6 to 8 weeks prior to that current expiration date. I would definitely take Crystal Ann's advice and contact customer service since you're a PAN member, and they can let you know where you're at in the process. But with you not expiring until January, there's good probability that the state just puts you on the back burner until you get closer to your expiration date. Carolyn says,
Excellent.
can I use a current out-of-state driver's license to notarize in Pennsylvania? Yeah. The questions you need to ask yourself when it comes to the ID is it government issued? Is it current? So it can't be expired. And then does it have a signature or a photograph? I would say both is better, but one's required. And then it should be satisfactory to you. If it checks yes to all those boxes, you can take it. So that's what you just got to make sure.
Okay, Robin, I notarize multiple documents for the company I work for and am a member of the company where I have an interest in the company, percentage of ownership. Should I not be notarizing for the company? I'm actually taking some quotes from the law. I think, was it John recently said, or Crystal Ann recently said, that you are not to notarize if you or your spouse has a direct or financial interest in the transaction. But then there are exceptions to direct interest. Two of them are going to relate directly to your question. Being a shareholder in a publicly traded company that is a party to the notarized transaction. The other one is being an officer, director, or employee of a company that is a party to the notarized transaction, unless the director, officer, or employee personally benefits from the transaction. In other words, you get a commission. So your interest in the company, again, I'm not a lawyer, but at least it doesn't sound to me like you should step away and not be the notary. But if you want to know for sure, I would recommend talking to an attorney at law.
Okay, great. So in regard to Jennifer's question, may you be a notary in 2 states at one time? Like, let's say I live in Pennsylvania and I'm a Pennsylvania notary and I work in Delaware. There's no reason why you cannot be a notary in other states. As long as you are following their laws, then that's fine. Follow their laws, follow our laws. You should be good. I believe we have somebody who works for PAN who is a notary in multiple states. Am I correct, gentlemen?
I don't know.
Oh,
Ooh, yeah. So
that's a new one to me.
I thought someone told me that Mark was a notary in multiple states. Oh,
wouldn't
okay.
surprise me.
Maybe in multiple states of mind, but
Edit that out.
All right. Are we required to keep paper copies of every ID document, electronic copies for how many years? So if you are a standard notary, when I say standard, that means you do not have a contract with Penndot to issue titles and issue plates and things on that nature. If you're just a standard notary, you are not required, nor would PAN recommend keeping copies of IDs. Your proof on what you did in that transaction is going to be your journal entries. Now, if you are a Penndot agent, that changes. Per your contract, you are required to keep copies of the buyer's IDs and the sellers, pretty much the transactions. You got to keep copies of that for at least 3 years. Dealers would be up to 4, I believe. So yeah, that just depends on what type of notary you are.
So we are actually caught up on questions for the first time since we began. It's 11:40. I mean, we can end early. Oh, there's a question from Ashley. I'm an agent with PAA, which is the Pennsylvania Automotive Association. So I do title work and registration. So I need to keep that when I notarize a title application. Yes. When you are involved with an application for title and registration, everything that is related to that particular transaction, whether it be a yellow copy of an MB form or the notarized summary sheet if you're online, and the copies of proof of insurance, proof of ID needs to be kept. Yes.
Okay. If I volunteer for a nonprofit, can I notarize a document with my name on it? There's no benefit to myself. You are not permitted to notarize your own signature. I hope that answers your question there.
If she's not signing as the customer, I mean, that's an open-ended question. I mean, that we don't know how she's listed in the document. So I would say not to do it, but that would be an opinion answer.
But definitely never notarize your own signature.
Correct.
Absolutely. 2 questions rolled in, which were pretty much the same. So I'll just kind of, combine them both here. If you are a standard notary, can you do Penndot transactions like a car title? Can you notarize a car title? As a notary in Pennsylvania, you can notarize anything that needs to be notarized here. Now, Pan would highly recommend, if you're not familiar with car titles, if you're not an agent with Penndot, to stay clear of car titles. One tiny mistake on that title can deface the title. It'll cost your customer money to get a new one. It's going to take time to get that new one. And regardless, even if you do the notarization on the car title, they still need to go to an agent to finish the paperwork. So there's not really a reason for you to do it for your customer. Now, let's say you want to do it. I'm going to put it in the chat box again. On Pan's YouTube page, there is a how-to video. It explains kind of what I just went through. But if you are interested on how to do a transfer of a title, there's a video that can walk you through it step by step.
So Ashley has a follow-up to her question about keeping copies of everything she does for Penndot. Now, Ashley, the assumption is that you or the organization you work for is contracted as an issuing agent with Penndot. Those contracts require that you keep all of the paperwork filed away. If you issued a registration plate, they need to be kept separately and in order by plate configuration. And if you just transferred a title, they need to be filed in date order.
Okay. When you complete your journal, so you say notary book, I'm assuming you mean journal. When you complete your journal, where to get a new one, you can order a new one from customer service at Pan. And then your follow-up question is, can I make any notebook my notary journal? No, you cannot. There's some very specific information that needs to be in your journal. It must have numbered, chronological, itemized entries, must have numbered pages. If it's bound, there cannot be any room for someone to remove pages or add like a cover or anything else. There must be specific information on the first page in your journal. And if you order one from Pennsylvania Association of Notaries, ours is RULONA compliant. So ours complies with the law and it has everything you need to be compliant with Pennsylvania notary law.
All right. I have a coworker who is a standard notary, so they are not a Penndot agent. Can she notarize a car title if I'm overseeing it? If she would need to notarize my signature? Yeah, she could. Nothing in the law against it. They can notarize as a notary. I'm just a standard notary. I'm not contracted with Penndot. I could notarize a car title. I probably wouldn't personally, but like you said, you're experienced, Ashley. You could walk them through it. Yeah, there's no issue there.
I'm pretty sure, John, and just want to piggyback that the person she's overseeing needs to be listed on the contract.
And
So
she's shaking her head. Yeah.
there's a form for that. And off the top of my head, I cannot remember what that form is.
The 73B,
Yeah.
right?
So that would need to
To
be
add
filed
in-
with PennDOT with her name, what her job duties are. Otherwise, she shouldn't be doing anything with motor vehicle paperwork.
Yeah.
And just so you know, that link that I just posted is directly to Pan's website where you can choose to buy a journal.
Oh,
If
awesome.
you're interested.
Good job, Brian. Thanks.
All right. And Ashley says that, yes, she's listed on our Pennsylvania Automotive Association contract. I thought you could create your own book, paper and digital, as long as it meets all the requirements for a journal. Technically, yes. When we're talking about a paper journal, the pages need to be consecutively numbered. The entries need to be consecutively numbered. It has to be made so that it's bound so that if someone were to remove or try to add a page, it would be really, really obvious. So, I mean, that would involve taking a notebook and numbering every page, A to Z, 1 to whatever, and then numbering each entry consecutively. That's a lot of work. I mean, if you want to do that, you can, but that's completely up to you. And as far as digital or electronic is concerned, that is a possibility, but it needs to be tamper evident, which means that if it's altered in any way, shape, or form, that if you signed on to it or pulled it up, it would be obvious that a change had been made by somebody else.
Awesome. I think, Brian, did you maybe skip some questions? Because I'm seeing some. Okay, so I'm going back up. Somebody, Jean, I believe, asked what would cause your journal to be reviewed by Pan.
Oh, I didn't see
Pan
that.
is not going to review your journal. Maybe you want to know what will cause the Department of State to review your journal. If you do anything that causes your customer financial loss, or if you get in trouble in any sort of way, then the state might review your journal and they might request to go over it every month.
All right. Regarding journals, do you just update your appointment dates in the journal, especially since I only use about 5 pages per appointment? What I think you're asking is, when do you fill in that journal when it comes to the dates? You're required to, per the notary law, you're supposed to fill in your journal contemporaneously with the act. So before that customer leaves, you should be filling in the journal entry. Well, I don't recommend pre-filling out your journal before it happens. I know that could save you time, but if something doesn't take place, therefore it's going to screw up the order of your journal, because you need to keep your entries in chronological and separate order. Remember, 1 stamp equals 1 entry, and try to get in the habit of doing it before the customer leaves. So if you have 5 pages, in that transaction, you notarize 5 times, that's gonna be 5 separate journal entries.
May I piggyback?
Please.
I read the question differently. And again, I
Okay.
could be, again, I'm often
Well, I would rather have,
today, I skipped all those questions, but the way I read it was that if she has a 4-year commission and she only uses 5 pages, can she keep using that journal?
That's
the
how
way
I read it.
Yes,
Okay.
can, but on that page where you have your identifying information and it says what's the expiration date of your commission, you need to change that every time you get reappointed.
She did clarify that at the bottom there.
Okay.
So that's a good call.
Okay, the next question, I believe, from Lisa. Is that where I should be?
I think so.
All right. I've heard of the Modern Journal of Notarial Events. Are we able to use this journal for Pennsylvania? Well, you've heard about something I've never heard of, but I will give you the standard answer. Lisa, if it meets the standards of the Pennsylvania law, you can use it. Yes.
And what I'm going to do is put a link to the actual notary law here in Pennsylvania in the chat box.
Thank
So
you.
if you want to compare, you can.
Great. Thank you, John. And I'm seeing the same question that I answered previously about what would cause your journal to be reviewed by PAN. PAN is not going to review your journal. It could possibly be reviewed by the Department of State if you do something that causes your customer financial loss or something. So just go over that again. I'm not sure if you heard the answer the first time. Should I take the next question or?
Sure.
pass on?
Sure. The
Okay.
one,
Go for it.
Catherine.
Yeah, from Catherine. When filling in the venue, does it need to read Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? It could say Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, or it can say State of Pennsylvania, but you do need to spell out Pennsylvania. Do not abbreviate it.
All right. When would the state do an audit, or do they? The Department of State doesn't do random audits of notaries. Now, Penndot, however, will do an audit if you are contracted with them. So if you're a notary and contracted, that's a little bit different. But if you're just a notary, you're just notarizing your standard documents and you're not contracted with Penndot, they do not come out and do random audits. So you shouldn't hear from the state as long as nobody filed a complaint against you or a document comes into question.
So the next question I see from Angela, and I'm going to interpret, it says, are notaries listed somewhere? Yes, there is a notary search on the Department of State's website, and I'm going to post that link.
Awesome.
So if you'd like to search for a notary, you can search by name, you can search by commission ID, you can find a notary near you. You can look for people with current and expired commissions. PAN also has a notary search on its website, but it's only for PAN members, and it's only for people that have chosen to be a part of that notary search.
All right, and you are very welcome, Jean. And then Francis, I'm trying to scroll up to see that you're following up on another question. What you mean is the front of the journal, which indicates this is the record of your commissioning information. So you're talking about changing, I think we already answered this question.
Yeah,
Am I
she's
correct?
saying I
Yeah.
answered the
Sorry.
question, I think is what she's saying.
Sorry about that. Then I will get the next one. Notarizing in Northumberland County, do not abbreviate the county. Do not abbreviate anything in the venue.
All right. Are we automatically listed by the state? Yeah, if you are commissioned as a notary public in Pennsylvania, you will be on the state's website. Yeah.
And Catherine
Oh.
would like to know, where can she find out information on doing electronic and remote online notarization? She wants to be able to notarize for people that are outside the US. And we do have a link for that, which that's the law, I believe, Crystal Ann.
Is it?
There's another link on that.
I just,
There it is. Department of
Thank
State
you.
e-notary and Ron
Ah.
information can be found here. So if you
I
click
was-
on that link, Catherine, you will find about a day's worth of reading, and I'm not kidding you.
yes. But very informative. Yeah, if you do have the time to go through it, if it's something you're interested in, highly recommend going through that because you're going to get all your answers at that link. I promise. Yeah.
All right, you're welcome. And we're up to only having about 5 minutes left. So if you want to get your questions in now, go ahead and do that, please.
Okay, this is me again. Can you continue using the same journal when you're recommissioned? Yes, you can. If yes, then will I need to put a line through my previous notary expiration date in the front of the journal? Yes, and then rewrite it underneath with your new notary expiration date? Yes, yes, yes. Anything else to be aware of when recommissioned? Not that I can think of, but you were correct. Yeses to everything you posted, Alyssa.
Right. If we have any other questions at any time, is there a direct way to reach you, or do we go through PAN's website? So if you're a PAN member, you have access to our customer service team Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30. That could be phone call, chat, email. You got tons of options. If you would like to reach one of us instructors, Crystal Ann did us a favor and put our shared email address in the chat box. Now, as a disclaimer, feel free to email us. But there are times where we're traveling and we don't get to it right away. So if you're looking for an instantaneous response, I would recommend contacting customer service. If you are okay waiting for an answer from one of us, you will get it within a day or so. But just know there are times where we're on the road, we're traveling, we're not always accessing that. But feel free. We're always glad to help.
Okay, a question from Jennifer, a question regarding remote notarization. What forms of ID are acceptable if you notarize documents for someone who is not a U.S. citizen? Again, you want to follow the notary law, which says the ID needs to be government issued, current, not expired, with a photograph or a signature, and satisfactory to you, the notary. Those are the standards.
Excellent. And then Diana has a question. You'll be taking the exam from Pearson VUE, I'm assuming. Do you have any advice? If you are a PAN member, you should probably have a Rulona rundown if you took one of our classes. I recommend that you study that. And also, if you took one of our seminars, you would have received an email from PAN advising you to take our online test tutorial and exam prep. Aside from that, also in the back of our books, there's notary law. I want to say it begins on page 63, but am I making that number up? In the
No,
back
you're
of the
right.
book, there's notary law.
Now you're starting to dream page numbers, aren't you? That is
I
correct.
think it's page 63. So yeah, that's what I recommend in order to study for the test.
What is the difference between appointed or commissioned on the notary's current status? So when you are appointed, that means the state has appointed you as a notary. You submitted your application, they reviewed it, they accepted it, and then they appointed you as a notary public. Commission means one step further. They appointed you, you went down to the courthouse, and you got sworn in. So you recorded your bond, you recorded your commission, you took an oath, you recorded your signature, and you're sworn in. There, the courthouse will let the state know that you've done those things. Therefore, you were then commissioned.
Yeah, I think they flipped that switch from appointed to commissioned when the recorder's office transmits the copy of the recorded bond back to the state. Not that they really need to know that, but. So will the question and answer be available to view later? I missed the beginning. The very beginning was a presentation. It was about 15, a little more than 15 minutes long. One of the two presentations today, either this one or the one that we do at 3 o'clock, will be posted on our YouTube channel next week, but the printed Q&A will not be available.
And then when will your office host another webinar? Can you please also send an email blast with invites for these going forward? I'm actually going to pass this question on to John because he's in charge of social media type stuff. So I think you'd be better at answering this question.
Yeah, so believe it or not, yeah, Alyssa has texted me, or not texted me, has emailed me, asking me from time to time, and I give her the same answer here. Keep up to date with us. We're going to put it on our Facebook. We're going to, like you said, Alyssa, we'll email blast you. Our next one's not set in stone, but we will always take the precautions of letting you know when we do decide. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. We're always looking for topics. So before you head out of here today, people, if you have something you'd like to see in a future webinar, don't hesitate. Throw it in the chat box because we're looking for content, looking for something different that we can focus the next presentation. Now, before I forget, because we're getting close to the end here, if you have any more questions, you could email us at pan@instructors. It's instructors@notary.org. We'll put it in the chat box one more time.
I did.
I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, could
Thank
I answer?
you.
I'll answer Lynn's question since it's short. Basically saying when she gets reappointed, does she need to retake the exam? The answer is no, unless you let your commission expire.
Awesome. Is Kathy still here? No, Kathy, what's it been? Some months now.
Yeah,
Kathy got a new position somewhere.
Job.
Yeah.
It's been over a year.
Yeah. Now, because it is noon, we promised an hour, so we're going to go ahead and start shutting things down here. So if any more questions, feel free to email us and we will get to those. If you have time, I just put a Google review link in the chat box. If you enjoy PAN services, you like our customer service team, if you enjoy the webinars, the education, whatever it is, let us know. We're always looking for feedback on Google. So if you have time today, that will take you directly there. Anything else we need to say before we head out of here?
I think
Thank
thank you
you.
for attending, and thank you for being here to participate and ask the valuable questions that help not only you but other attendees. So again, we're thrilled to have you. We're thrilled to be able to provide this kind of service for you.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always great when people participate. It makes the hour go by fast. Man, that flew by. So
It did.
yeah. So I'm gonna let everybody have the option if you like. It's always fun. If you'd like to unmute yourself and say goodbye, you're more than welcome to. But in about 2 or 3 minutes, this room's gonna shut down. So thanks everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good
Thanks for
weekend.
being here.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. I want a background like John's.
I know, me too. I'm jealous.